Good afternoon. So thank you. Thank you for coming together. Thank you for coming back from the coffee break. And I hope everyone got lots of coffee. I don't have slides to animate my presentation, so you'll have to hang on my every word. And if you find my presentation at all boring at any point, I hope you'll let me know that by closing your eyes. So I'd like to just say a few words about some of the work that the United States has been involved in at the intersection between climate change and agricultural development and food security. You know, we live in a world where today the UN Food and Agriculture Organization estimates that 842 million people suffer from chronic hunger. And statistics also show that 1 child in 4 in the world is stunted, a key indicator of undernutrition and deficiencies in key micronutrients. By 2050, the FAO estimates that global agricultural production will need to rise by at least 60% to meet the demands of a growing population with changing dietary requirements, all in the face of a changing climate and dramatically increasing pressure on water and other natural resources. We understand that climate change and environmental degradation can affect the sustainability of investments in agricultural development and food security, and thereby impede long-term economic growth and adversely affect the livelihoods and well-being of millions, hundreds of millions of people. Because about 2.5 billion people in the world depend for their livelihoods directly on climate-sensitive economic activities such as agriculture and fisheries. And that's why in Feed the Future, the US government's Global Hunger and Food Security Initiative, we adopt a comprehensive approach to ending poverty and undernutrition. And this includes addressing the root causes of poverty and hunger, building bilateral, multilateral, and strategic partnerships with private sector and civil society to leverage investments, and to build resilience by incorporating climate-smart agriculture as a cross-cutting approach in our work, and by developing strategies and undertaking research to help smallholder farmers reduce greenhouse gas emissions and adapt to climate change. As numerous studies have outlined, including those by the World Bank and the FAO, climate-smart agriculture requires an integrated approach that is responsive to local conditions, and Feed the Future does just that. By bringing together many different US government agencies to design programs that address the entire food value chain in sustainable ways that align with our partner countries' own food security priorities, we are already making a difference. Through our Global Climate Change Initiative and Feed the Future, our integrative thinking on agricultural adaptation fits well with the holistic climate-smart agriculture approach. Adaptation isn't a standalone concept. Through our support of national adaptation planning, for example, we seek to help developing countries to plan for food security in the medium and long term in the face of a changing climate, and to develop and revise agriculture sector development plans that reflect the fact that agricultural development can't be separated from adaptation, nor the reverse. And under Feed the Future, agricultural programs seek not just to sustainably increase productivity of agricultural systems, but also to enhance ecosystem services, such as pollination and the hydrological and nutrient cycles underlying clean air and water. For example, Zambia has approximately 50 million hectares of forest and a deforestation rate that is among the highest in the world, officially estimated at about 250,000 to 300,000 hectares per year of forest loss. Feed the Future and the Global Climate Change Initiative are taking an integrated approach with partners in Zambia to improve rural livelihoods and food security, while offering smallholder farmers and other community members the tools to conserve the land they need to sustain their livelihoods over the long term. Feed the Future is training rural farmers in conservation agriculture techniques like composting, mulching, crop rotation, and intercropping with agroforestry to increase yields while protecting the soil and trees on farms. And our climate change initiative trains traditional charcoal producers, who are frequently the poorest members of rural communities, to teach them better ways to harvest the wood that won't wipe out their community's forests. The intersection of climate change and vulnerability, natural resource management, and water also figures centrally in the U.S. government's efforts to build the resilience of people, households, communities, and systems, social, economic, and ecological, resilience to recurrent crises. For example, while we cannot prevent drought in Niger and northern Kenya, or earthquakes in Nepal, we can work more effectively across agencies and across humanitarian and development funding streams to build the resilience of households, communities, and systems. This will empower them to better mitigate, adapt to, and recover from recurrent shocks as well as stresses such as climate change and variability of climate and population pressures that have expanded the depth and breadth of vulnerability in areas subject to recurrent crises over the past several decades. Feed the Future is helping pastoralists and smallholder farmers in Africa and Asia to adapt to climate change and build the capacity of partners in these countries to support local pastoral communities through the Innovation Lab for Collaborative Research on Adapting Livestock Systems to Climate Change. This research lab is led by Colorado State University in the United States in collaboration with a broad array of research and non-governmental organizations in Africa and Asia. These partners are tracking the impact of changing climate conditions on pastoralists and smallholder farmers and are working to develop and provide tools that can help these farmers and pastoralists to address climate-related challenges, such as the spread of diseases or availability of water and food that animals need to be healthy so that they can be sold in markets. In Nepal, for example, in the monsoon season and more frequent severe weather events that are affecting the livelihoods of smallholder farmers and livestock holders, we are taking efforts to help them prepare. We're helping them to prepare for hazards such as floods and landslides, as well as manage water resources. And to do this, researchers are using state-of-the-art satellite technology to project rainfall. This information helps farmers decide which animal feed crops to plant and when, mitigating the risk that a severe weather event will wipe out all their animals' source of food. These examples underscore the importance of harnessing scientific innovation and technology to achieve food and nutrition security and addressing the challenge of global climate change. Some of the greatest leaps in human progress have come not just from developing new technologies, but from the power of applying these technologies locally, adapted to local conditions. Pearl millet is a staple food for nearly 100 million people in Africa and Asia, particularly for those living in arid and semi-arid climates. Using conventional breeding methods, scientists at the International Crops Research Institute for the Semi-Arid Tropics, or ICRISAT, are now developing millet varieties that will have even higher levels of iron. Over the next 5 years, Feed the Future, working through Harvest Plus, expects to considerably scale up the delivery of iron pearl millet to reach more than 1.5 million farming households in India, and with the potential to impact nutrition in other countries across Africa and Asia over the longer term. This is significant because iron deficiency impairs mental development and increases fatigue, while severe anemia, often caused by iron deficiency, increases the risk of women dying during childbirth. In our work, we partner with the private sector to leverage resources, promote innovation and entrepreneurship to catalyze climate-smart agriculture development. For example, through a collaboration with the Gates Foundation and public and private partners in India, Bangladesh, and Nepal, Feed the Future is working to develop and disseminate resource-saving technologies and management practices that will also help to diversify systems and increase farmer incomes for over 1 billion people in the Indo-Gangetic plains of South Asia. These include new stress-tolerant cereal varieties, zero-till agriculture, improved legume rotations, and more efficient water pumps, all of which will contribute to making the systems more resilient to variations in precipitation, which could increase due to climate change. Local service providers and small agribusiness dealers are key partners in this effort. Through them, we can extend our reach to hundreds of thousands of farm households and ensure that the effort is sustainable beyond donor support. Studies by the International Food Policy Research Institute, who is represented on this panel, confirm that another aspect of our strategy under Feed the Future makes sense, and that is an emphasis on broad-based economic growth, increased productivity, and improved trade are all critical to progress in sustainable food security globally. IFPRI studies suggest that investments in infrastructure, such as roads and irrigation, can lead to improvements in agriculture and in the economies of the lowest income developing countries, even under conditions of climate change. Under Feed the Future, we approach sustainable intensification by emphasizing a whole-of-government approach that allows us to consider this bigger picture. Research and science provide essential physical and intellectual infrastructure that inform investments in other infrastructures such as roads, irrigation, and energy. These should be developed and designed to enhance inclusive economic growth, agriculture, and food security while protecting natural resources and responding to climate change. Last year, in June of 2012, we launched the Powering Agriculture, an Energy Grand Challenge for Development, and this will overcome critical access barriers to electrical energy for agriculture through innovative clean energy technologies and financing mechanisms. The effort will bring global attention to the persistent energy access issues that confront farmers throughout the developing world in agricultural production, processing, and storage. This grand challenge for development encourages innovators to find new ways to bring clean energy to farmers through sustainable and scalable solutions that will allow farmers to produce more and better quality food for their families and their communities. It is also expected that these innovations will create new economic opportunities in agricultural communities in the developing world. Bringing together science, finance, and policy to face key challenges and address climate change requires us to integrate our own programs and investments. Research helps drive innovation that can achieve this. In 2012, the U.S. government launched the Feed the Future Food Security Innovation Center to address the greatest challenges to food security and nutrition, developing climate-resilient cereals, increasing legumes productivity, tackling pests and diseases, producing nutritious and safe foods, developing markets, and implementing sound policy, promoting sustainable intensification, and increasing human and institutional capacity. Each of these program areas will be pursued through investments that span U.S. universities, private sector research partners, federal research institutions, and international and national research partners such as the Consultative Group for International Agricultural Research and National Agricultural Research Systems. In our 2012 budget year, USAID, the U.S. Agency for International Development, expanded research and capacity development programs led by U.S. universities, now collectively known as the Feed the Future Innovation Laboratories. These innovation laboratories encompass the programs formerly called Collaborative Research Support Programs, or CRISPs, along with new collaborations with universities. Enhancing food security and nutrition in the face of climate change is an immense challenge, But if we use the tools that are at our disposal wisely, we have the chance to contribute to climate change mitigation and adaptation while improving the resilience of our ecosystems, agricultural systems, communities, and economies. Science can help us boost productivity, develop new technologies, and identify many of the benefits and challenges associated with them. Finance and policy are important drivers for determining which approaches will be most readily and successfully taken up. These linkages will be critical for us all to consider as we continue the fight against global hunger and food security through solutions that foster natural resource conservation, climate change adaptation, and the integration of productive agriculture against the larger landscape. So with that, I thank you for your attention, and I look forward to the discussion this afternoon and beyond. Thank you.
You